everybody, welcome back. It's the Sunday Night Talk, but it's the NFL Draft Edition. It's been a while since I've been on here, so we had the draft yesterday as I record this, so I thought it was time for a check-in, catch up on some NFL stories in the offseason, talk about a pretty big draft yesterday. It's going to be Raider-heavy talk, but also going to get into some off-the-field stories that have caught my eye this NFL offseason. So buckle up. We're going to get a little bit of an NFL fix for us fans to, talk about what's going on in the season. The offseason has now become its own animal, its own life form in a sense for us NFL fans and for us reporting on the NFL. Arguably more fun than some of the NFL season, especially if your team has a really bad season going into it. So it's off-season time to talk, and I want to remind you that, of course, the Sunday Night Talk goes on during the football season, but stuff goes up on my YouTube channel all year long. My stand-up comedy is up there, not to mention my interview series is up there as well. Everything is up there and online, so check it out. Give it a subscribe if you haven't already. Give this video a like as well, and more stuff coming up. So let's talk NFL. It's the draft. It's really the first big event since the Super Bowl. It's funny, once the Super Bowl happens, fans, media, everything involved in the NFL takes a few weeks to fully decompress and take account for what happened during the season. Not only what happened during the actual game of the Super Bowl, but actually what happened during the season, whether it's your team or the NFL in general. And the draft has become such a huge event that it really occupies a lot of our mind. Whether the NFL gets it right as far as the promotion of the draft, of the event, covering the event, I think we're still figuring that out overall as to how to cover and how to take it all in. I thought they did a good job with it as far as yesterday's draft goes and the first round itself, and promoting the league, the players, the former players, and then the new players coming into the league through the draft itself. So I was trying to think, what's my earliest memory of the draft? Because as far as an NFL event, it's probably something that has gone through the most evolution over the last 25 years, going from just a hotel conference room to being in Madison Square Garden to now being like, it looks like an outdoor concert event now, with music and presenters, fans everywhere to it. So my earliest memory of the NFL draft, and it sort of gives away your age when you think about things like this and historical moments, was, I remember it must have been 89, maybe 90. I can't remember the year exactly, but the big story was that the Notre Dame Heisman Trophy winner, Rocket Ismail, was declaring for the draft. He was going to be a pro. He was the biggest star in college football. And now the Dallas Cowboys had the number one pick in the draft that year. So it was pretty common knowledge that the Cowboys were going to get Rocket Ismail. And that was a big deal. It's like, now the Cowboys will be good, because this was not the 90s Cowboys yet. And it was this huge boost to the team. And right at the 11th hour, Rocket Ismail, or his agent, announced, not only are we not going to be in the NFL draft, we're not going to be in the NFL. We're going to Canada. And he didn't play in the NFL for multiple years, and he was in Canadian ball, and the American audience never really got a look at him. This was before the days where you could just find clips of him on YouTube or anything to see how he was doing. And then years later, he was in the NFL. I know he played for the Raiders. I think he eventually did play for the Cowboys. But that was my earliest memory of the draft. Just kind of thinking like this was a chaotic experience. This was something that was beyond the field. This was beyond players' control, that anything could happen in the draft. And it's not as dramatic as like anything happens and it swings a major team's season. But weird stuff can happen that is somewhat in front office, out of players' control, out of the game's control to it. So there is some intrigue to the draft. But I would say by and large, the draft itself is somewhat boring. We don't know these players. We don't really know their potential. We're basing off of experts. and we've had a million examples of experts being wrong at it. So maybe that's the fun of it too. And after the fun of is intrigue of seeing these players face to face, seeing who their camp is, who's sitting there with them on the couch, what they're wearing, and then of course roll the highlight package right as their names are announced. So it's a fun thing to observe, I think, for a short amount of time. I am biased when it comes to this year because I was so excited for the draft, a little nervous that the Raiders were going to do something weird or dumb and not take Mendoza. And it didn't happen. They took him as expected to it. So once that pick was in, I effectively checked out of the draft. I watched the next couple of picks, and then I didn't really care that much anymore. And for the most part, I would think that's how most fans react to the draft, is like once your team's pick is in, maybe you stick around for their next pick in the next round, but that's about it. I tuned out. I sent a few texts. I perused NFLshop.com to see what Mendoza stuff I should be looking at or I should buy in the next 4 months. And then that was it. And then I went back into the draft list and saw who got what and where people were going and what surprises there were, which there was a couple surprises into it as well. So let's talk about the draft itself, specifically this Mendoza pick. Okay, so the Raiders have the number 1 pick, and they take Fernando Mendoza. We know the story, Heisman Trophy winner, national champion. Just a great send-off from the national championship football game to today, or I should say the draft yesterday. Tremendous prospect. Reading about draft prospects and the draft class in general from experts didn't seem like the deepest of drafts when it came to quarterbacks, at least. So a little bit of qualifying the draft, qualifying his talent, qualifying his place in this class. That being said, the Raiders are coming off a horrendous season previous. They fired their coach, Pete Carroll. They effectively fired and erased Geno Smith from history. They don't want to talk about it and they want to acknowledge it. It's like a statue of a Civil War general. We just want to forget everything that happened. And if there's anything we can erase from the history books, we will. They have the number 1 pick. They need a quarterback, and there's a great quarterback in the draft. Everything lines up. They got a new head coach. So this was an easy pick. Now the question becomes, what do they put around him? They already got their new head coach, who is a Super Bowl winner, offensive coordinator of the Seahawks year previous. I don't think we can go any lower from last year. And then they're building around the offensive line as well. Mendoza is the number 1 pick. Raider Nation reaction seems pretty overwhelmingly accepting of this pick. I didn't see a single argument against the pick. Everybody seems pretty happy. The funny part is there's this Hispanic connection to the Raiders, which probably derives from West Coast. So we've got Mendoza now, and that seems like an interesting tie-in to that Hispanic community of the Las Vegas Raiders. I think that could be really fun, and if that really, really connects with a lot of fans, we've got something on our hands here that could be huge for it all. So total excitement from almost all the Raider accounts I follow that they were accepting of this pick. Draft location from Pittsburgh this year. I still don't know how they picked the locations of it all, but it looked good. It looked like fans were having fun. Huge outdoor stage. There's music. They do the national anthem. There's a few bands there and all. I don't know what the vibe is with the fans, if they enjoy it in that regard, but it looked like fun. It looked like just this big outdoor tailgate situation. So kudos to you, Pittsburgh. I thought that looked great. Your city looked great. I always like a city that has rivers in the middle of it. Maybe it's so foreign to me being on the western side of the states for so many years. Bodies of water just trip me out. Okay, on to the picks now. Like I said, I told you I checked out after Fernando Mendoza got picked. Maybe I was in some state of euphoria, or maybe it was relief that I was like, yes, it was Mendoza that they got. Let's run through the first 5 picks. Fernando Mendoza goes to the Raiders. We talked about why I like this and why Raider Nation liked it. Okay, let's go through the next 5, though. Number 2, it's David Bailey from Texas Tech, edge rusher to the Jets. Jets are another team that's just in permanent disarray. Edge rusher seems to be a good pick. Everybody liked it. You can't go wrong when you pick strong on defense to start. So good pick there. Pick number 3, Jeremiah Love, running back from Notre Dame, goes to Arizona. I'm a little weary when running backs go so high in the draft. When's the last running back that was picked high and had a 7-year career? You'd have to go back a good chunk of time. I think you'd have to go back to Adrian Peterson. Little worrisome on that one. I didn't fully understand a running back going so high in the draft, but Arizona takes him. Number 4, Carnell Tate, wide receiver from Ohio State, goes to the Titans. Another interesting one that I don't know if I like wide receivers going so high in the draft. Titans, they have a pretty young quarterback there, so they're bolstering their offense with that. Interesting. I just don't know too much about wide receivers going high in the draft. And then lastly, number 5, Arvell Reese, which was a pretty high prospect on most people's draft list. Linebacker, Ohio State, goes to the New York Giants. The Jim Harbaugh now head coached New York Giants. And they had another first-round pick in this year's draft. Strong pick. I like that one. That seemed to be Mendoza 1. Arvell Reese was number 2 for a lot of people on their list. So that's your top 5. Round 2 is going on right now as we talk about it. I guess the only other interesting stuff from a fan perspective is who's going to be the Mr. Irrelevant, who's the last pick in the draft. Is always a fun PR, fun photo opportunity as well. You get to hold up the jersey. And then there's been so many previous Mr. Irrelevant draft picks that actually have made an impact in the NFL. Brock Purdy comes to mind in that regard. Other notes on the draft. I thought it was interesting that Fernando Mendoza didn't attend the draft. I don't know when the last time the number 1 pick did not even go to the location. He was on remote, and he was wearing a nice suit. He looked like a banker. maybe that's the approach. We're going to be businessman. Fernando Mendoza is with his family. He was expecting to get drafted. It was a done deal because as soon as he was picked, all the hats went on himself and his family, which, by the way, I looked up that hat online. I already have it ready to go. I'm going to buy one. I just have to decide if I want the snapback or the fitted one. So that was interesting that he didn't actually attend. I didn't hear a reason why. But overall, his reaction, he seems very happy to go to Las Vegas. And in just talking about what he's walking into, Vegas picked up Kirk Cousins in the offseason on a contract that they're paying for half of. The other half is being paid for by Atlanta, his previous team. Now, seems like that is a very healthy mentor relationship. 2 guys that are somewhat religious-based guys. So one's a veteran, one's going to be a rookie. That seems like a really good pairing. Kirk Cousins quietly has carved himself a pretty good career in the NFL. Not like playoff wins or anything like that, but he's been in the league a long time. It seems like he can still have something to offer an NFL team, whether it's on the field or in a mentorship role. And he just seems like a great team player as well. That was a curious decision, I think, on its face when it happened in the middle of the offseason. And now it's starting to make more and more sense to it. Then the question becomes, who's starting week 1? Is this going to be a situation where Kirk Cousins, the veteran, starts the first 4 weeks and then Mendoza starts to be slowly integrated into it? Are they just going to flat out compete for the job in the offseason? Something to watch. And whether Cousins gets the starting role or Mendoza gets the starting role, I think there's an argument for the positive for each of them. So I don't anticipate a lot of controversy with this going into the offseason, who's going to start week 1. Now, I mentioned that Mendoza did not attend the draft. So post-pick, he did a lot of online interviews, a lot of essential Zoom interviews from reporters. It was funny because his video feed was kind of grainy. The audio was a little slow, had some lag to it. He seemed a bit overwhelmed by it all too. It seemed like he had answered the same question 100 times over. His face looked a little red on camera too. You could tell like a lot of people were around him. He's trying to focus on the interview and he's looking around, rubbing his eyes a lot. So I think that's a really long day for him. He got overwhelmed by it. You can't give the guy too much criticism for it. Like, such a long day. There's probably a lot of nerves. He's wearing the banker suit. I give him a pass on that. I talked about the Raiders bolstering their offensive line, which they were horrendous last year with the O-line. As much as we hated Geno Smith, the line was not very good. They had a lot of injuries, but Raiders get a new center this year. They arguably overpaid for their center, but if you're going to overpay for someone on the offensive line, fine. I'm okay with that. That is something I'm glad they addressed. Also, in one of the interviews, Fernando Mendoza got a little bit of shit for he tried to do a Raiders chant, which I don't know when this chant became a thing. We're doing the Raiders. He did it, and then everybody kind of made fun of him because he didn't really get it right. This takes some learning to really figure out the Raiders fan base and their chants and all our idiocy that goes into us dressing up at games and being critical of the team and all the Raiders lore that goes on to it. And then last note on it, which I thought was interesting, I talked about the Hispanic stuff where Fernando Mendoza, who's Cuban, by the way, not necessarily Mexican or Hispanic, or there's some Hispanic there, but he did an interview in Spanish, and the interviewer asked her a question in Spanish, and he answered about half of it in pretty good sounding Spanish and then went right back to English. So I was impressed by that he actually, he tackled it. I don't even know if he's that fluent, but the fact that he got one answer off in Spanish, I thought was pretty cool too. So Mendoza is our quarterback. I cannot wait for the offseason. I can't wait for everything. See him in the Raiders practice gear, see him take the photos in the Raiders uniform. It's going to be a little difficult for me to bring myself back down to earth when it comes to the excitement, because we do this every year. I do this every year where I get excited for the new trades, the new players. I like them in the silver and black. And then I have to remember that, week one, we have to see it on the field. So look at all the Raiders moves. And there's a big one that I'm going to talk about next. In the offseason, we got a quarterback, we got a coach, we got a new center. A lot of things, a lot of pieces being moved around. And I remember last year, the Raiders were a very trendy pick to make the playoffs last year, and it blew up in all our faces. And now this year, I want to be cautious with it all, but I mean, the improvements are there, and I don't think we could do worse. So Raider Nation is very happy today, and if we ultimately if we have another horrible season, this will be the greatest day of the season, is today or yesterday. In the draft where Mendoza got drafted to our great nation. That is. So that was the draft. That was my experience today. So we're going to talk about other off-season stories. Beyond that, the only other draft surprise I found was the Rams taking a quarterback, which Sean McVay seemed to be surprised by in his interview. He was like, I didn't know about that. And now I have to do all the catching up of who is actually on the team, who's the second stringer. I thought Garoppolo was on the Rams. I don't know what happened there. And then McVay said he's going to compete for the job with another quarterback who's not Garoppolo. I don't know. I got to catch up. There's too many things to catch up on the NFL. All right, so let's talk about off-season stories, which now that the Super Bowl is over, we're by and large restricted to off-the-field stuff. Some stuff sensational. Some stuff is, I could say, managerial, but so many moves going on. But let's just run through the off-season stories, and I'll speak about each one as we go through them. So post-Super Bowl, once we've come down to earth and caught our breath from the Super Bowl, it seemed like for a few weeks we really asked ourselves, was Drake May injured in the Super Bowl? We saw his horrendous offensive performance besides one or two drives was really not there. And I think we got the answer to it, although they didn't come out and say it, that Drake May was dealing with an injury. And just from watching all the post Super Bowl sideline cams, audio, that there was a point where he might have even been taken out of the game when he's laying on the ground and Vrabel asks him if he wants to finish when the game was already hand, and he gets up and finishes the game. But it does seem like that concern was there, or that concern was met. Something was not right about Drake May. It wasn't 100%. I even heard the take that just from the disappointed New England fan base, it like, would have been better if we lost to Denver. Just like, hey, we had a good year. Denver beat us. Let's not deal with the disappointment that was a Super Bowl loss. I think that was a hard way to end the season for the Patriots. Really, really difficult. Even though there was so many positives about Drake May and the Patriots defense overall. That defensive performance in the Super Bowl is really the best thing about that appearance. You go back and watch it, they kept that offense in the game for a long period of time. All that being said, if you lose a Super Bowl, you just want to forget it. You just want to forget everything that happened and move on. And then now they become I would say one of the bigger question marks going into the NFL season is this team going to bounce back? They had a somewhat easy schedule, debatable, but on paper an easy schedule. And now we see how they can bounce back, how they make changes, and how they can compete now that people know their potential. Next offseason story, this one is a little bit more in my backyard. The Max Crosby trade, non-trade. I still have my Max Crosby jersey on. About a month ago, we had Max Crosby announcing to everyone, I'm going to the Baltimore Ravens. The trade was in. Raider Nation bid the man a very respectful goodbye. He served us well. We knew he was upset at the end of the season. He wanted to play. The Raiders were in for, I guess you would say, tanking. They didn't mind if they lost those games. So they put him on the inactive list, which he was upset about. The man wants to compete and saying he was injured. And then he posts a video of him playing basketball in his home gym. Like, I love a home gym too. He's got a home basketball gym, which is just a blatant FU to the Raiders, where he's saying, like, guys, I'm not injured. I can play. You don't want to play me. Then the trade rumors began. We have him set to go to Baltimore for 2 first-round picks. And then a day later, the trade's off. Baltimore reneges and says he didn't pass a physical based on an injury that he's had for, I think, 4 seasons. He clearly can play with it. But I think Baltimore got cold feet and realized they were trading too much for him. So now, nothing has transpired since. And he's still a Raider. And I even go to his Instagram, and there was a video of his reaction to the Mendoza pick, and he's smoking a pretty low cigarette in this video. Like, it's down to the nub. He's shirtless, all the tattoos. They announced the pick, and then Crosby just does a hard rip of the cig and gives it a couple applause. So I, for one, am now starting to think maybe Crosby's back on board with us. Maybe this jersey can have another year, another season of Crosby to it. Like, he's a great Raider. I'm sure this is not done, though. I'm sure they're still shopping him around. If he wants to go, he's going to go. That's how it works with the players these days. It's got to be the right way. I don't think the Raiders are going to get 2 first-rounders for him anymore. I think they put that offer out into the NFL world. Everyone else saw the Baltimore Ravens didn't like it. So I think the market has been set as 1 first-rounder, probably 1 second-rounder. It's what's going on. Kirk Cousins of the Raiders, the other Raiders offseason story, which was surprising at first, and now it's starting to make sense overall with Kirk Cousins being a mentor role. And now we question the week 1 starter. Next offseason story, and it seems this one is still developing, unraveling, being reported, whatever you want to call it. This Mike Vrabel, Dana Rossini story seems to have new legs on it every single day. And I struggled with this story initially, where I thought this is a very sensational story, but there really isn't that much there other than what we've seen. These are 2 people, looks like they're having an affair. It's interesting because one's a reporter, one's an NFL coach, and That's it. That's about it to the story. And then what becomes intriguing to us is, as a people, there's a few ways you can react to this story. There's people who will say, like, was there an ethical line crossed from a reporter to a source? There's the moral reaction of, these are two married people. There's just a humanistic reaction of, this is so intriguing because it makes us feel better about our own lives. We're like, oh, look how terrible these two people are to it. And then always my favorite one is, there's the too high and mighty reaction where the person reads the story and says, like, why does everybody care about this? Why are you so concerned about other people's lives? I'm like, because we're humans. We're crazy. We're sensationalistic. We're hedonistic. We want to know what's going on. We want the intrigue of it. What gave this story a little bit of legs was the line. They both lied about it and said, no, we were there with friends. Clearly weren't there with friends. Fast forward another 24 hours, and then Diana Russini resigns from The Athletic, her employer. Usually don't resign from somewhere if you're convinced you're in the wrong. You've been wronged. So that's what makes this story interesting. Now we cross into TMZ zone of it, where we start to ask the questions, who took these pictures? And it seems to be reported that this was a private investigator that took these pictures, quite possibly hired by Russini's husband, is one report. Clearly, this picture is not taken from an iPhone. This was from super far away, and it's still grainy. So I don't know if the guy was on the next mountain over in a cave taking these photos. But this was a coordinated. I don't think this was like, hey, look over there. I know those two people from NFL. I'll take a shot. I think this was someone who was there for the specific reason of trying to get dirt on these two. They knew something was up. And it's like, now I have to go find evidence of this. And now within the last 24 hours, more photos have come out from 6 years previous of the two at a bar holding hands, doing some canoodling. Seems like we got some heavy canoodling going on here, which begs the question, does anybody know how to cheat anymore? Don't go cheating and hugging and kissing at bars. Whatever happened to Motel 6s? Whatever happened inside of a car? No one knows anything about how to cheat anymore. This country used to be great. Tiger Woods. People say, like, get a driver. Nah, the guy wants to drive and crash cars. We used to know how to do stuff like that. Like I said, 7 minutes later, I still don't think there's a lot to this story other than, like, I think we know what's going on in this story at face value. Russini seems to be the one who has taken the brunt of it so far because she's lost her job. She's got a lot of explaining to do with her own family. Vrabel, on the other hand, really just has to answer to his own family and his God, whatever his deal is, because it seems like he is stepping out on his marriage here, and he got caught. So that seems to be what's going on there. This sensational part about it, which just from the sake of intrigue, is the son part where Diana Russini has a 6-year-old son she named Mike, which would be really, really weird and messed up if this is Mike Vrabel's son and she named him that. This just seems like some bad people out there in the world. And when it's our journalists, I think we just naturally get a little cringed out by where we start to think, like, how far will this journalist go for maintaining a relationship? The question is, like, say this affair is going on. Does it mean Vrabel's giving her more information than he would another reporter? I don't know exactly what would be the net benefit to her as a reporter, other than he's texting her stuff he's heard from other teams. I can't think that it would hurt the line of information. But this is, I have to be honest, a great offseason story when it comes to NFL fandom, because the offseason is pretty boring. And now we have this to consider and this to dive into. If there's something more to it, then the story will get another week possibly. making the rounds and people making comments and tweets. David Poitner from Barstool Sports seems to be the most comical about it all, constantly putting out funny stuff about it. Just goes to show you, I mean, the NFL is entertainment all year round for it. So it's an interesting story. I don't know where the second part of it is. I kind of relate it to the Nancy Guthrie story of a few months ago where we had this kidnapping of a grandma, mother of a famous news person. And that was about the story, and that was it. We never got that second part of the story. We found out who or where or further details to it. And this is where this story's at right now. Is this story going to continue? Are we going to find a secondary detail of this story? Are we going to have a press conference from either of them? We'll find out on that. But either way, the two parties involved, it's kind of ugly at best. But from a fan perspective, it's become just total tabloid. And we're like, all right, well, we're ready for another detail. Let us have it. Doesn't affect our lives. So we can see and hear, and we will take in whatever crazy, sensational detail will come our way. And for us, because we're sick, ravenous media dogs, we love it. We love it. We want to see what's going on. It's Real Housewives. It played out in real time. So that story is still TBD. And then the last offseason story, which is by and large buried by media, the NFL. I don't know why. Maybe it's because of the other stories, but it's this Puka Nacua story that I just read about 2 days ago that is very troubling. And just to catch up from what I read, Puka Nacua was served a lawsuit for allegedly assaulting a woman, but more specifically, biting her. Biting! I've heard a lot of assault stories. I never knew there was real biting to it, which made me think, when's the last time someone got in trouble for biting? It wasn't Marv Albert into biting way back when in the 90s. So he's got that lawsuit, which he claimed was like, I thought it was playful. But then the second part of it, Puka Nacua has been in rehab for the last few weeks. From my readings, I couldn't find out exactly what he was in rehab for, whether it was substance or drinking or God knows what. This was the NFL's best receiver last year. This was a human highlight reel. This was a great teammate. This was a clutch receiver. By and large, like a pretty good role model for the NFL. And now we go just do a total 180, rehab, and now I'm biting women. I haven't heard anything about this story. It hasn't made the rounds in any of the algorithms on YouTube, clicking links, just seeing the headline, Puka Nacua, rehab, at all. It makes me wonder the how. How does this happen in this day and age? It's not like we're flooded with a bunch of off-season stories, and this is pushed to the bottom. I still have to read up on this. All I know is rehab and lawsuit because he bit a woman. So Puka Nacua and the Rams, who just drafted a little bit of a surprise QB in their draft, are still in the midst of sorting something out. And if this continues, if Puka Nacua seriously has a problem, then we start talking about his availability for next season. Again, if you've heard this story, let me know in the comments, because I have not heard from any of my friends, any of my NFL friends. I heard it flippantly on another podcast, and I was like, what's this about? Looked it up and found these small details of it. So that's another one, that off-season story that maybe we should be paying attention to, or really don't have a lot of information on other than headlines you can find just on Yahoo News. So that's the off-season stories to it. We've still got a good handful of months to go. So we'll have some more to it and all. I'm personally excited. If you just took my excitement temperature right now, 1 out of 10, let's go Geno Smith to Rich Gannon MVP excitement level. I would say I'm at an 8. I got to be at an 8 right now. Quarterback, coach, center, possibly Max Crosby back. Maybe he has a come to Jesus moment And he starts going to Bible study with Kirk Cousins and Fernando Mendoza. And we have a really strong core of a team going into it. I purposely have not looked at the Raiders schedule because it's too early for me to start thinking which games they'll win or lose. But there's a lot of excitement right now. I have, I would say, 6 or 7 items in my cart at NFLshop.com that I want to buy now, jerseys and hats and t-shirts for Mendoza and the Raiders in general. So really fun last 24 hours for Raiders fans. I'm checking in with my Raiders fans friends. Everybody's happy. Everyone's excited. Everyone's saying, like, this is a great guy. Just thinking about Raiders culture, we just think of the Raiders as this, I don't know, I guess you would say it, renegade type of team from the 70s and 80s and Lalo Zato. The current version is Max Crosby now. Now we get Cousins, who's a pretty straight-laced guy, coming into Vegas, Sin City. But maybe that's what we need as a Raiders Nation. Maybe we need a little touch of the faith-based. Maybe we need some conservatism on the Raiders. Maybe we need some consistency. Maybe we need this guy who is buttoned down and by the book. That could be a nice balance for us. If you're going to go to Vegas as a young man, you better have some foundation or else that city's going to swallow you alive. I just worry with the flip side. What if Fernando Mendoza just becomes just some degenerate blackjack player? We can't find him. He's at the blackjack tables, just playing for 6 hours straight at Caesar's Palace. I don't think it'll happen. He's too strong. All right, that is the Sunday night talk for, I guess, draft day, you would say. Pretty exciting 24 hours. That was off-season stories. That was my thoughts and prayers for the Las Vegas Raiders. What do you think is going to happen to your team? What do you think is going to happen to the Raiders in general? Crosby, question mark. Cousins and Mendoza might have a great mentorship going here. We need a shot of them going out to dinner or something. Maybe they could all, Cousins could include Mendoza at his family dinner or something, Sunday nights. I love it all. All right, that's going to be the show, everybody. That is the show for the Sunday Night Talk NFL Draft Edition. Las Vegas Raiders get Fernando Mendoza. The offseason is heating up. Season not here. The offseason is heating up. If you haven't already, go to my YouTube channel. Give it a like. Give it a subscribe. Click on one of the stand-up comedy videos. I got stuff coming up. For me, Patrick Ramirez, Raider Ramirez, saying thank you for listening and watching. The NFL Draft is in the books. And the offseason still going. Enjoy it, everybody. I will talk to you very soon.